So tonight, Ayya Suvira will be speaking about the 8 thoughts of a great person, referencing the Anguttara Nikaya, which is the numerical discourses of the Buddha. And she's going to be speaking about the relevance of these 8 thoughts of a great person to lay life, success with meditation, and beyond. Ayya Suvira is a Buddhist nun. She's a bhikkhuni in the Theravada tradition and a student of Bhante Sujato. She received the going forth ordination as a seminary in 2016.
Recording in progress.
And higher ordination as a bhikkhuni at Dhammasaranand's monastery in 2019 with Ayya Santini of Indonesia as preceptor and Ajahn Brahm as instructing teacher. At present, she works on Sutta Central related projects dealing with Sutta parallels in Sanskrit. So thank you, Ayya, for coming in person. It's really lovely to have you. In terms of the program for this evening, there'll be about 15 minutes of meditation at the start. Then there'll be the talk and then time for question and answers after that. So, yeah.
That all sounds wonderful. Thank you so much for that kind introduction, Mayanne. And I'm very happy to be here at the Metta Centre, with very good friends. So, let's start with some meditation. So we'll do 15 minutes of meditation, and we'll do some guided meditation on breathing. So doing some breathing meditation. So we can set ourselves comfortably in our chair. And if you need to wriggle around to get yourself into a comfortable position, just go ahead and do that. And we can bring our attention back to our bodies. We can feel all the feelings in our heads. We can feel the feeling of the skin of our scalp and relax our scalps. We can relax our foreheads, relax our eyebrows, relax our eyes, relax our mouths, relax our cheeks, our necks, and our backs. We can feel all of the feelings in our left arm and relax our left arm. We can relax our right arm. So right down to the tips of the fingers. Just letting our arms be nice and relaxed. We can relax our stomachs. Relax our left legs. Relax our right legs. And let our legs just be very relaxed. From the knees to the ankles, to the tips of the toes. And we can feel our whole body just being gentle, mindful and relaxed. We can draw our attention to our breathing. So feeling all the feelings of breathing in and feeling all the feelings of breathing out. So gently and mindfully breathing in 1 and breathing out 1. In 2 and out 2. In 3, out 3. In 4 and out 4. 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, 9, 10, 10. And we can spend the next few minutes just silently doing the same thing, but without the counting. So silently and mindfully feeling the feelings of breathing. if our minds wander, we can just gently bring them back to the breath. We can slowly bring our attention to our bodies. Hearing all the sounds around us. Sounds of the birds, the street, we can gradually relax our hands. And slowly and mindfully open our eyes. And come back to the room around us. Short lapel mic? Okay, great.
Let's see. Because they're having trouble hearing their soft ones.
Sure. We can try the lapel mic. Or just find a place where it's not going to rub on my word. Because that's people's perpetual complaint.
And closer to the top of the
Closer to the top, okay.
Thank you.
Are we oriented correctly? Is that, are you picking up
so,
on,
yeah.
on the lapel mic? Okay.
Could we get a thumbs up from those who can hear? Right, take it okay? Definitely better. Okay. Excellent.
Okay, so how do we feel after meditation? Do we feel good? It's okay not to feel good, but normally, you feel a bit calmer after meditation. And actually, doing that reflection after we meditate, that is the power, called the power of reflection. So, knowing that, I've sat for 15 minutes, I've looked at my own breathing, I've looked at my own mind, and now I feel calmer than I did before, or my mind has changed in some ways. Actually, that's also learning. So quite an important thing to do after meditation, to reflect. Okay, so before I begin the talk, I'd just like to pay homage to the original teacher, the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. So this evening, I'd just like to share some stories from the Buddha's life and from, the lives of the Buddha's close disciples. And I think the story I chose in particular this evening was because it's an interesting topic from the life of Venerable Anuruddha that we could maybe just use as a springboard to look at themes like, contentment and even humility, and where these really fit into our practice, as people who have to go about our lives, and also as practitioners. So when I say Anuruddha, does everyone have a good idea who Venerable Anuruddha was, or are you all just, you've never heard of Venerable Anuruddha before? So could I have a rough show of hands, like who has not heard of Venerable Anuruddha before? You've never heard of Venerable Anuruddha? Okay, great. So we have a learning opportunity this evening, because that's really helpful, because that lets me know roughly who's here and where I need to pitch. So Anuruddha was the son of the Buddha's uncle and the brother of Prince Mahanama. So he was related to the Buddha. He becomes famous as one of the Buddha's leading disciples because he was actually declared by the Buddha to be foremost in psychic powers. So we don't always talk about psychic powers straight up when we talk about meditation, because it can get a little bit weird. Because you do get people who come to meditation programs for just the wrong reasons. I remember in pre-med, I think this would have been in anatomy and physiology, and we were just sitting around for class, and a guy from my anatomy and physiology class asks me, "So what did you do on the weekend?" And I said, "Oh, not much. I just went to my to the local temple." And this completely random guy from my pre-med class, then explains to me, if you would like to get psychic powers, you need to study the Visuddhimagga. So that was possibly, I don't know, that was one of the things I learned in pre-med. Because when you tell people at Temple that you're in medical science, they get very impressed because I was going to a Thai temple at the time. So, you say to the people at Thai temple, what do you do in medical science? And, nothing, we just look at dead bodies. The Thai culture, that's very impressive to people because, Thai popular culture has a lot of these ghost movies and stuff. So, all of these people have been watching these, these Thai movies of these disembodied heads floating around with the octopus entrails and things like that. So, when people hear that, you hang out with bodies, they think you must be very tough because you're not afraid of ghosts. So that was just a few things that happened in pre-med, which was a long time ago now before I became a nun. Anyway, so back to psychic powers and Venerable Anuruddha. So Venerable Anuruddha was a bit of a protege. So not only was he a relative of the Buddha, he achieved relatively high states of meditation very quickly. So, he ordained as a monk, and in his first basa, his first rains resident season, he achieved all of the, 8 higher states of meditation. So, that's a bit unusual. Most people don't do that. And, Venerable Anuruddha, he also has the distinction of having ordained in a rather illustrious group. So in the Buddha's life story, when the Buddha went back to his hometown, to Kapilavatthu, Venerable Anuruddha ordained at the same time as Ananda, so the Buddha's lifelong assistant, Bhadya, Bhagu, Kimbala, and Devadatta, as well as the Barber Upali. So they all became monks in that same trip. So the thing about, when we have these very refined states of meditation, sometimes, strange things do happen along with these states. And I've heard people describe, people getting psychic powers from meditation as being the free present in the cereal box. Because, you buy cereal for the cereal. You don't buy it for the toy unless you're 12 years old. So psychic powers are a bit like that, for mature people, actually, we don't come to meditation class looking for it. But, it's recorded in the text that sometimes these things can just be the freebie. So Venerable Anuruddha, his cereal packet came with a toy. And, for him, that was, he could see 1,000 universes with the divine eye. So, not only just seeing through walls and stuff, seeing galaxies stacked on top of each other like plates. So, quite a unique individual. And, not all of the Buddha's awakened disciples were like that. Venerable Sariputta was very famous for saying, he had no interest in psychic powers. So, you have this very opposite personality type who's very much the wisdom personality type. And, both of them equally awakened beings, but one of them had, this karmic propensity to, have these very unique mental abilities. So Venerable Sariputta became awakened first. So, of the two, Venerable Sariputta was senior. And Anuruddha said to Venerable Sariputta, he's talking about his meditation, maybe looking for some meditation guidance. And he said, friend Sariputta, I can see 1,000 universes by means of the divine eye. I'm always mindful. I have Samadhi, I have these meditative states of calm. However, I still have defilements. I still have asavas due to craving and view. So, you know, he's gotten all of these amazing accomplishments, and there's just one last thing that he doesn't, you know, he can't get rid of. So he still has the craving, and he still has view. So Venerable Sariputta says to him, you know, actually, when you've come to me and when you've said, I can see 1,000 universes with the divine eye, actually, you know, that declaration, that's your conceit. So that's what's stopping you from progressing further in meditation. You know, when you've come to me and when you've said, you know, I'm unceasingly mindful, actually that's your restlessness. And when you've said, you know, but I still have this craving and this view, that's your remorse. So we can see that, you know, Venerable Sariputta is playing the role of the meditation teacher here to actually show Venerable Anuruddha, you know, this is what's stopping you from becoming awakened. So, you know, this, the conceit is the I am conceit. So, you know, Venerable Anuruddha's problem is that basically he believes he exists. And, you know, how does he know he exists? He knows he exists by telling people, you know, I am the one who sees 1,000 universes, you know, stacked out like dinner plates. And, you know, he also has this other pair of hindrances, you know, that even though he has all of these great meditative attainments, you know, that are keeping him from awakening. So he has restlessness, you know, so he's over-energized, and he has remorse, so he has these regrets. And, you know, Venerable Sariputta told Venerable Anuruddha, you know, get rid of your conceit, your restlessness and your regrets, you know, and you know, continue to practice towards awakening. So, while these, you know, these may be subtle points, but actually this is something we can all relate to, because, you know, this basic problem of just being over-energized in meditation, you know, it's something that happens to many, if not most people. You know, you come to meditation and you're excited. You know, you want to do well. You know, you want to go through everything, you know, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and do everything properly. And, you know, part of that excitement and, you know, just keenness is that sometimes it can be a little bit destabilizing. And again, you know, the minute we take up something and we start doing something, you know, that becomes the I am this. So we mightn't have necessarily ever said, you know, I am the one who can see 1,000 universes, but, you know, at some point we've probably said to ourselves, you know, internally, like, I am the one who's meditating, you know, and developed this, like, self-identity around, you know, this is the thing that I'm doing. And, you know, again, the remorse, when we think, oh gosh, you know, I've sat down for an hour, I tried my hardest, but I still didn't get anywhere. You know, that thought alone is actually also, like, sure, it's telling us something about the meditation, but if we keep on it forever, you know, it also becomes a barrier. So Venerable Sariputta, you know, has given this guidance. You know, how do we become someone, you know, who really has nothing? Actually, even this thinking that we have about our practice or about our meditation itself, you know, these things, actually they become the very things that, you know, that keep us trapped. So Venerable Anuruddha was diligent, and he went to a place called the Chaiti country to practice meditation in a bamboo grove, and did not sleep for half a month. So I asked Bhante Sujato if it was okay to do this in a slightly different context. And he came back and he told the story of the monk who decided to eat 1 loaf of bread every 2 days. And in this story, the monk's teacher comes back and says, I would much rather if you ate half a loaf of bread every day. So there's probably something to be said for moderation in these things. But Venerable Anuruddha was already very highly attained by this point. You know, he was a bit special. So, not necessarily one to go back and try at home. And predictably, after, you know, not sleeping for a fortnight, he became tired and rested in the bamboo grove. And at that point in the bamboo grove, that was when he started reflecting on the 7 thoughts of a great person. The observant among you may have noticed that the actual title is the 8 thoughts of a great person. So the 8th thought was filled in for him by the Buddha. So, is that all good so far? Are we okay to move on to what these 7 thoughts of a great person are? Okay, so I haven't scared anyone off yet by just merely mentioning psychic powers. That's good. You can keep reading. So, you know, he's practicing, like he's done this world's most super intense meditation retreat, and it has occurred to him. I don't know where he got this list of 7 from, by the way. You know, whether it's something that the Buddha's taught him previously individually, or this is just something that has spontaneously occurred to Venerable Anuruddha. Because the Buddha actually fills in number 8, I suspect this may have actually been Venerable Anuruddha's own discursive thought to himself, like he's giving himself the pep talk, the Dhamma talk. And you know what Venerable Anuruddha has thought to himself, you know, is this Dhamma, you know, the Buddha's teachings, are for one with few wishes. So, you know, there's in Pali language, which is the language of Southern Buddhism or Theravada Buddhism, we have this word papañca, which refers to the condition of having few wishes. So there is a senior monk at Bodhinyana Monastery called Venerable Anuruddha, so now you all know how he got his name. And I thought this would be an interesting topic to talk on, because you know, not a lot of people do actually talk about this topic. You know, if you consume media, or if you simply go outside, or have occasion to go to the shops, it's very unlikely that anyone's going to actually approach you and say, you know, excuse me, sir or ma'am, have you considered having fewer wishes today? It just doesn't happen. You know, what you get is the person who has the kiosk in the middle of the shop who's selling, you know, hand cream, you know, minerals from the Dead Sea. You know, and it's not enough that you buy 1, you have to buy 2 because, you know, maybe your mum has a birthday, and, you know, maybe you need the nail buffer as well because, gosh, it makes your fingers very shiny. And I had occasion to visit the Queen Victoria building the other day because I just had to catch the train to, you know, get my bus to go to Queensland. And it was shocking. Like, I was shocked that such a place could exist, which, you know, the fact that I'm shocked by the simple existence of capitalism probably does mean I've probably been a little bit sheltered for the past few months. Because it's just like, it's a really weird concept, like the whole concept of just selling other people things. It's not, anyway. So, and the commentary says, you know, how do we become someone of few wishes? So, once we've, you know, thought about it and worked out, okay, maybe this is actually a good thing, you know, maybe that's something we could aim for and something that would be beneficial in our lives. You know, in detail, like, what does it actually mean to have few wishes? Like, what are the wishes that we have less of? So the commentary says, you know, there are 4 levels of having few wishes. So one of them is to have few wants concerning requisites. And the term requisite here, you know, being something of monk speak, you know, what we mean by requisites is just the material basics of life. So, you know, in physical terms, like, there is an upper limit on the amount of stuff that is actually useful or necessary. So, you know, the actions we take to, you know, reduce our need for physical stuff, in Pali language that's called papañca avijja, so having few wishes concerning requisites. And it, you know, it can go the other way too, that having not enough stuff can become a problem and, you know, an inconvenience we don't want to have. But again, there probably is a, you know, a happy place in the middle. And, you know, the second type of being of few wishes in Pali language is adhigama avijja. So if you become a holy person, you do not let the others know of your attainment. So if ever you go on a meditation retreat and, you know, that was just the retreat for you, and you come out and you are fully awakened, you know, so by not actually letting other people know of that, that also shows fewness of wishes. And again, right, it looks a little bit extreme because you think that's never going to happen to me, I'm never going to go on a meditation retreat and become awakened. Well, A, firstly maybe it might, but B, I think it does also say something to the etiquette of, you know, like how we talk about meditation and how we communicate with our teachers and with our peers. In that, you know, there are certain topics that, you know, should be between you and your meditation teacher. And actually, you know, even the etiquette of approaching your meditation teacher, you know, there are some topics that you should probably just even wait until your meditation teacher asks you. You know, even if you do get stream entry, like there's not really that much point telling your meditation teacher, because for all you know, your meditation teacher might be an arahant. What's the point even telling them that you're a stream enterer? So this is, you know, this is just etiquette and modesty, but also, you know, helping to build cultures around meditation where people can be safe, you know, and have spaces where, yes, you can communicate, but, you know, that space, you know, there's a structure, there's a time, and, you know, there's an end. So you have, you know, some place where you don't need to actually tell the whole room that, you know, you went on retreat and you came back and you felt so peaceful. Because, you know, even that can be a type of bragging. You know, I spent the whole weekend at the monastery and, you know, it was so peaceful. But, you know, this poor person next to you, like they spent the whole weekend at the monastery and, you know, they spent the whole time just wanting to peel off their skin because, you know, they felt so, you know, they were so tormented by the things they wanted to do back home. And I thought actually it's kind of an interesting topic because on the one hand, you know, we want to actually communicate that, you know, meditation is great, it benefited my life. So, you know, there's also personal judgment too about what's appropriate. That, you know, the reason we go to meditate ultimately, it's because we have something wrong inside of us. You know, we have greed, we have hatred, we have delusion. And, you know, the ultimate purpose is really just to root those things out. It's not, you know, and that particular business is a business we have with our own heart and not with the whole world. So these are some good qualities. So another way of having few wishes is also, you know, if we are very learned, you know, so if we, I'm just looking for an example. So if we memorize the whole Tripitaka and, you know, we sit the exam in Myanmar and we get the parasol, you know, again, I'm sure there may be contextual places where, you know, it's okay to talk about those things. For example, if someone asks you, oh, by the way, have you memorized the whole Tripitaka? You know, saying, well, yes, I actually memorized the whole Tripitaka. Thank you for asking. You know, like, that might be appropriate. But actually, you know, the quality of humility when it comes to book learning, is also something which is really beneficial because, no matter how long we have been learning for, most of us, we haven't actually memorized the whole Buddhist canon. We're just coming in from a place of study. So that's what's called pariyati apicca, having few wishes in respect of learning. And the other apicca, this is the fourth apicca according to the commentary, is having few wishes in respect of one's own undertaking of dhutanga. So again, maybe you undertake a particular individual practice, and maybe you choose to only eat one meal a day, or you have something that you've talked about in connection with your teacher, and that's part of your particular committed practice tradition. And you think, actually, this is something from my own heart. It's not something that other people need to know about. So that's what's called dhutanga apicca. So if we undertake what's called a dhutanga practice, not letting other people know. So these are the four types of apicca, or having few wishes according to the commentary. So I thought the commentary was very interesting here because it has a lot of lists. It has the 3 kinds of wishes, the 4 kinds of fewness of wishes, the 12 kinds of contentment. I mean, that sounds nice to have all 12. I would like to have 12 kinds of contentment. The 3 kinds of seclusion and the 5 types of contact. But as much as I love numbered lists, I wasn't really sure, how well that would all communicate. So I think we can go back to the second thought of a great person. And I mean, the reason why I like this particular topic of fewness of wishes, why the text is actually taking it up in this particular manner, I think it's also partly because this is primarily a monastic text, and I was feeling a bit ambitious. We can talk about like how this relates to daily life, but also, there are other roles too, where having this quality of fewness of wishes is it's very endearing and desirable. Because we do charitable activities, we do activities as community members and donors, and sure, all of that charity, all of the community activities is good, but having that second additional good quality of not wanting other people to know about it, that's also something which is beneficial for our own development. So that's Venerable Anuruddha's first thought. So this Dhamma is for someone who has few wishes. And the second of Venerable Anuruddha's thoughts is that, this Dhamma is for someone who is content. So, many ways to be content. I assume having few wishes feeds into that. But if we look at our life, actually, those moments we have when we're content, they are the most beautiful moments, just to be able to go back and just listen to the rain and not need anything. So, it's not a small thing, because this is actually really the foundation of meditation, which we'll get into a little bit later. That, how do you actually succeed in meditation? You succeed in meditation basically by being content. And that's why the Buddha said, in Pali language, he said, Sukhino chittang samadhiyati, the happy mind attains samadhi. So, the happier we are, the fewer complaints, in a very genuine, heartfelt way, not in a kind of suppressing way. That is basically the, the proximate cause for samadhi. And samadhi meaning calmness or unification of mind, i.e. the thing which occurs in meditation or samatha meditation. Okay, so thought number 3 of Venerable Anuruddha. This Dhamma is for those who are secluded. So again, what happens when you become a monk? You think, I'm going to become a monk and I'm going to go to the forest and I'm going to get myself a nice little leaf hut and I'm not going to talk to any human beings. I'm just going to practice my meditation. So the first thing that naturally happens when you do that is that a lot of people suddenly become very interested in what you're doing. So you have this kind of perpetual cycle. You know, kind of the irony of monastic life, that it kind of has this quirk of that the more you try to get away, the more people you know, suddenly become very interested. So, you know, why has Venerable Anuruddha said this? Because, you know, we all know what it's like. To meditate, you need to find a quiet place. And, you know, the definition of a quiet place is a place where there's not lots of people. So, you know, depending on what our family situation is, you know, it may be that there's only, you know, 30 minutes in the morning where you do actually have, like, you know, just half an hour before the family gets up. Or, you know, it may even be less than that. And, you know, that is some people's lives. And, you know, all of the efforts that we give for our family and work, you know, that's also, if it's wholesome work, you know, building wholesome relationships with our family, you know, that's also merit, that's also a type of practice. That actively seeking out, you know, those times of seclusion, you know, no matter how long they are, that is also, you know, a basic foundation for meditation. Okay, so that's the third thought. And the fourth thought is that this Dhamma is for one who is energetic and not lazy. And people, you know, can get a little bit confused about this because one of my meditation teachers is Ajahn Brahm. And, you know, Ajahn Brahm runs, you know, very popular retreats. And sometimes he says to people on the first day, you know, just sleep as much as you like. But we need to understand, you know, why Ajahn does this. It's because a lot of the people who come in, you know, they've come in from Asia, they've travelled to be there. You know, some people, you know, they work very demanding jobs and they're physically tired. And, you know, that's why Ajahn tells people at the beginning of retreats, just rest. But at some point, you know, if we want to do meditation, we have to physically be present, we have to physically be awake. And, you know, to actually convince our bodies to be in that state does require a degree of energy. I don't know, I wasn't, like, some people, they have kind of different natural, like, energy frequencies. I feel like it's a genetic thing, like where you are in the energy band. So I am not actually a high energy person. I am like the definition of a low energy person. So, you know, the Buddha, for people like us, for the genetically unenergetic, the Buddha has given recommendations. So, you know, some of them involve, you know, just like, say if it's nighttime, just getting outside and looking at the stars or the moon. So we can do physical things, you know, that actually just support our wakefulness, you know, going for a walk, doing some acupressure. These are all things that can just, you know, help to keep us awake. So that's thought number 4. Thought number 5 is this Dhamma is for one who is mindful and not unmindful. So these days we have this very popular buzzword, which is mindfulness. And, you know, it's true, because if our things are in a mess, how are we meant to have any focus? You know, if we don't know what our own feet or our own hands are doing, you know, we have very little chance of knowing what's going on in our own minds. And Venerable Anuruddha has said, number 6, so this Dhamma is for one with Samadhi and not without Samadhi. So, again, can I have hands up? Who's actually, like, before today, who's heard this, who hasn't heard this word Samadhi before? Okay, so that's good. We all kind of know what Samadhi is. Because I mean, it's possible that people mightn't, because in different modern languages, like in Hindi, for example, you go to visit someone's samadhi. What are you doing? You're actually you're going to go visit their tomb. So I think we went to go see Mahatma Gandhi's samadhi, or his samadhi style. Sorry, I don't speak Hindi. When we were in India, so when you talk about like a saint's samadhi in India, like quite often you're talking about they're passing away or something connected with that. But this is samadhi in the sense of Buddhist meditation. So samadhi having the sense of of unification, of coming together of the mind. And we can see actually that we've started from having few wishes, being content, being secluded, being energetic and not lazy, and being mindful. And all of these things, all of that contentment, being a few wishes, all of that's really laid the groundwork for actually being able to enter into meditation. We just have a great time in meditation. And samadhi, like, it's a matter of degree. I'm sure someone like Venerable Anuruddha, sometimes you can have samadhi that's a few hours, sometimes you can have samadhi that's a few days. So maybe his type was the latter type. So by samadhi we mean the four jhanas. So again, these very pure, concentrated states of mind. And Venerable Anuruddha's seventh thought is, this Dhamma is for the wise, not the unwise. So, we've gone through all of that. We've had few wishes, we've been content, we've been secluded, we've been energetic, not lazy, mindful, not unmindful, with samadhi and not without samadhi. And now Venerable Anuruddha is thinking, okay, there's another one, which is that we must also be wise. So, what are we wise with respect to? Maybe with respect to the five khandhas. We know they're arising and falling. Or maybe, with respect to any of those Dhamma categories that are mentioned in Satipatthana practice. So I'm sure we could be wise with respect to a lot of different things. And these two, they actually kind of go together hand in hand. We have jhana and we have wisdom. Because the Buddha said, there's no samadhi for one without wisdom, and no wisdom for one without samadhi. Or alternatively, there's no jhana for one without wisdom, and no wisdom for one without jhana. So these things support each other. They're not, completely different concepts. And Venerable Anuruddha, maybe he's just chilling to himself, having this thought. And I think, from memory, what happens at this point is that the Buddha makes a psychic drop-in. So he appears, and he fills in point number 8, which I thought is very interesting because clearly Venerable Anuruddha, he has all of these high meditative attainments. He can see 1,000 universes, stacked up like dish plates, and he clearly hasn't thought about this yet. So I think this is quite interesting. So the Buddha, tops all of this off by saying, this teaching is for those who don't enjoy proliferating and who do not like to proliferate. Not for those who enjoy proliferating and who like to proliferate. And I think, this statement is very interesting. Because first of all, about what it says about translation and just how awkward using some of these this low frequency vocab really can be. to describe emotional states, because outside of Buddhism, I don't think I've ever used the word proliferation in my whole life. I don't know, I can't really think of a time I've ever actually even used that word. So what it's translating here is really something of a Buddhist technical term, which is papañca. So you have this whole concept of, like this kind of snowballing thought. And, maybe that's probably the closest thing I could really relate to papañca, like this concept of snowball. It just grows and it embiggens. And, one of the monks in the Theravada said, like proliferating like wild animals, they just keep on multiplying. So, this is sometimes the qualities of our thoughts. And, this tendency, like sure, it's annoying and it's stressful, but not only is it annoying and stressful for us, it's actually something very deep that, shapes our whole human experience and ends up relating back to the fact of like, why were we even born at all? Because, that is our fundamental error, that we start with, things that are very innocent, like physical reality, mental reality. And we combine that with, our craving, our ego, and our views. And, from that rather innocent substrata, we get a snowball of, of selves and beings and, possession in the world. So this is the teaching that the Buddha gives. And after hearing this teaching, Venerable Anuruddha continues to practice and becomes an arahant. So that is the story of Venerable Anuruddha's awakening. And the commentary has a point, that when the text says proliferation, what's actually meant is proliferation on account of craving, so tanha, mana, which is ego, and views, which is ditthi. So I'll just check how we are for time. So I think that's probably exactly on time. That's about how long I wanted to talk for today. So that's Venerable Anuruddha. So now he's been introduced to everyone. He does get a few mentions. I think he gets a mention in the Majjhima Nikaya as well. Probably in the Upanishads Sutta. I think he's together in the park with Kimbala and Nandiya. I think. He may also get a few other mentions where groups of arahants are mentioned, and he gets his own verse in the Theravada. But maybe not such like a high volume contributor like say Venerable Sariputta in terms of teaching discourses. But in the Anguttara, Venerable Anuruddha, he's given one of these foremost titles, so that's how we should remember him, as the Buddha's foremost disciple in psychic powers. So that concludes the talk for this evening. So hopefully, if I've done a good job, there should be some questions, because some of these topics, they're not easy topics, because so much of our life is actually about acquiring things and about worrying about the world, that none of these things are actually easy. So I'd like to hand back to Tina to MC the questions.
Thank you so much, Ayya. Very interesting. So if anyone has any questions, you're welcome to ask them. For those who are online, you're welcome to unmute yourself, or you can place the questions into the chat. We also have some paper and pens for those who are here in the audience. If you want to keep your questions anonymous, you can do that as well. So far away, so if you've got a question, just pop it into the chat, or you can ask them to Ayya directly. Maybe just pass. Thanks. So while people are thinking about their questions or typing something through, maybe I'll pose a question to the audience and see if anyone, maybe write your answers onto the pieces of paper and pass them through, and for those who are online as well, our usual style. So the question I'd like to pose for everyone is, we've heard the different factors that we want to talk about today. So what are some challenges that you may have in practicing one or more or all of these factors? So if you have any challenges, pop them into your pieces of paper or on your chat, and then I can ask Ayya. So maybe we can pass some pens around as well, so everyone can see things. Thank you.
I have a question. So Ayya, do you think the Buddha in a way was implicitly advising Anuruddha to stop proliferating?
I had the same thought, actually.
Did the commentary say anything on that? Because I was thinking, is the Buddha giving advice to Anuruddha? Stop proliferating.
Yeah, you're thinking too much.
You're thinking too much. You're not meditating, you're just thinking.
That is so interesting,
Yeah.
because that had not occurred to me.
Okay.
It's very possible,
Yeah.
because there is a type of thinking which is called Dhamma
Mm-hmm.
which is the thinking about Dhamma.
Mm.
And sometimes, like, if you get people and they know they have a meditation problem, but they don't really know what it is, Dhamma Vitakka is sometimes one that people miss, because they think, I'm doing all of these wholesome things, I don't think about anything. All I think about is Buddhism. Why am I having so many problems when I've just been thinking about all the right things?
Mm.
So there is that is a class of meditation problem.
Mm.
Thinking too many good thoughts, that is Dhamma Vitakka.
Mm.
So some people do have this problem. So yeah, see, it's just so interesting when people pick up the same text and have a different reading. I'd say that's probably quite a legitimate reading.
Mm.
But I don't know, and because I only read the commentary for the things I was looking for. I don't want to go on the spot and look it up now.
Yeah. Because thinking about meditation is actually not meditating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meditating is meditating. Thinking about meditation is thinking about meditation.
How you will become. Yeah. It hasn't happened yet. It's just an idea or a concept that's still fermenting in your mind, waiting to happen. Just an observation.
But again, thank you so much for that, because we spend a lot of time thinking about meditation, talking about meditation, and sometimes even I think to myself, what are the things that's the most precious? It's the meditation itself. All of the rest is just the nice packaging, the welcome mat, but we still have to do the work. Yeah. So thank you so much for making that point.
Thank you.
So we do have a question from someone online. So Ayya, this is from the person. If I heard you correctly earlier, you mentioned that this teaching was more geared towards monastics. Are these 8 thoughts or guidelines a useful practice or contemplation for the laity as well?
I think so, because actually, what have we just been talking about? We've also just been talking about the Noble Eightfold Path, because we went through, and what have we done? We've cultivated meditation, and we've cultivated wisdom, and we've stopped proliferating. So there's only one path to awakening. Which is, either it's the Noble Eightfold Path, or it's the 37 Bodhipakkhiya Dhammas, or it could even be summarised this way, as this 8 thoughts of a great person path. So it's the same thing. But I think, just looking at the way the commentary in particular treats that first item, I think, that is very much a typical commentarial monastic reading. The commentarial author has looked at the problems monks have, because monks have monk problems. And I think it's really important when you're reading Buddhist texts to be aware that it may be a monastic author talking about things that are monk problems. And to give an example of that, you know, even some Jatakas, they have like monastic in humour. And like, you know, a very good example of a monastic in-joke in the Jatakas is the Bisa Jataka, which is about lotus roots. And you know, it's very like, it's a kid's story about, you know, 16 people who go to live as hermits in the Himalayas. You know, they get the hermitage and they're all living together happily. You know, they get on great as roommates or whatever. You know, some ladies and men, it's like not gender segregated, it's like co-ed hermitage. And, you know, until one day someone steals the lotus roots. And, you know, the rest of the Jataka is about like, it's kind of like this whodunit murder mystery. And, you know, to work out who the thief is, everyone has to curse the thief. Because like the idea is that, you know, if you were the thief, you wouldn't be able to curse yourself. So one of the curses, you know, is may you become a building monk. You know, may you spend your days making windows. Because to understand that, yes, that is in fact a curse. You know, it's also good to have some literary appreciation for the monastic sensibilities of the authors. Because, you know, what's a monastic's worst fear? To get assigned, you know, the lifetime building project. So, you know, you only just managed to get away from like all of the stuff that was going on in your former job, you know, being an accountant in ancient India or whatever, and then suddenly you found yourself with a new job, which is the window making job. And that's, you know, the rest of your life, and there goes your dreams of meditation, of like chilling out on a mountain peak, and you're just making windows forever. Yeah, just something to keep in mind with Buddhist texts. So I mean, I think the reason why the commentaries treated it this way is because, you know, like monastics are humans, so monastics have greed, hatred and delusion, but we just get, you know, monastic greed, hatred and delusion. And like, what does monastic greed look like? It's, you know, it's greed for donors, it's greed for requisites. And how do you get donations and requisites? Aha! If people knew I was enlightened, I would have more donations. Aha! If people knew I was the Tripitaka master, you know, I'm sure we could build some more windows back at the monastery. So I think that's why the commentary has gone down this line. Because, you know, extrapolating it to your own life probably isn't that hard either. Because, you know, there are many people who spend a lot of their life, you know, plotting and planning, you know, how can I improve my material situation? You know, how can I have the whatever it is that people want to have? I don't know. I don't even know what people want to have these days. Like, what do people want to have? The Gucci handbag, you know, whatever they're selling in the Queen Victoria building. So if, you know, we take the literature, but it's not that hard to think about, you know, how do we actually apply this in a novel circumstance. So I saw something crazy the other day. I saw that like 200,000 of the world's richest people hold something like 1/4 of the world's wealth. And that's just, you know, why there is such an expanding luxury goods market, because, you know, clearly the money exists somewhere, but it's just tied up in this very tiny percentage of the population. Because, I mean, the whole concept of having few wants, you know, like people, if you're working a job, if you have family, you know, the stuff that you have in your life, you know, it should be like, it should be appropriate, you know, for the use, you know, and for your needs. And, you know, it's when stuff starts going beyond like what you actually need. That's more of the problem. And the other thing too is like, if you're actually thinking about it, because like, I mean, I personally, I own a lot of stuff. And I'm not just saying that because I'm like hypersensitive. I actually do own a lot of stuff, because by the time you have to go for like the toenail clippers, the razor blades, the pens, the stamps, the envelopes. Like, you know, to live, you need stuff, but it's just the question of like, you know, does that go from actually, you know, just being stuff that's there, not hurting anyone in the drawer, to something you're actually thinking about and plotting about, and it's coming back to you on retreat, you know, gosh, I really wish I had those Gucci toenail clippers. So, you know, to be someone who is of few wants is actually just to lay the groundwork for meditation. Because, you know, we all have little things that might be a bit more sophisticated than, you know, having the nicest set of toenail clippers in the monastery. But in very basic terms, you know, all of that thinking that happens in meditation, it's, you know, most of it only really comes under two categories. You know, it's either, you know, we see something nice in the world and we want it, you know, that is the papañca, the sensual desire, or we see something, you know, not nice in the world and we start disliking it. And, you know, these two things, you know, the papañca and the vyapada, so, you know, the sense desire and the aversion or the hatred and the ill will, you know, towards the stuff that basically we see, hear, you know, touch, encounter, like physically in the world, like, you know, those two things, they're at the top of the list of the 5 hindrances for a reason, because, you know, that really is the basic reason why it is difficult to meditate. If you come into meditation with those two, you know, it's not going to be meditation, it's going to be papañca meditation, it's going to be vyapada meditation, it's not going to be breath meditation or anything else.
You must be psychic, because one of the comments online in response to the earlier question about challenges is, my challenge with trying to be one with few wishes is living in a society trying to convince me that I need to wish for more, pursue more, acquire more. Being one with few wishes really goes against the stream. So I think you answered the question before I asked it.
Yeah. But I mean, that's why we have a Buddhist talk, you know, just to give the talk that is against the stream. Because you all know the story of the Buddha's awakening in the Jataka commentary. So I think this is in the Nibbana, and, you know, the Buddha, he wants a sign. He wants a sign that he's going to be awakened. So I'm just trying to remember the details, but he throws the bowl in the river. And the fact that the bowl goes upstream, not downstream, you know, that's the sign that he's going to be a Buddha. So this term, akiloma, against the stream, is very much something that we associate with Buddhism. Okay, were there any other questions?
No questions.
I had a question. So you talked about Samadhi and how we need to have the right Samadhi. And I don't want to start a jhana war here, but what are your thoughts on whether the nimitta is necessary or not? Because in the suttas, as you're aware, it's more about bodily awareness. Just wanting to have a casual chat about it.
You know, any statement that's preceded with the terms, I don't want to start a jhana war. you know that's actually a flag. The person making that statement does in fact want to start, you know, said discussion. So, you know, what is the nimitta? The nimitta is a perceptual phenomena. So, like, what's actually meant by perception? Perception, you know, is a very individual thing. Because when we're dealing with a nimitta, it's something that exists only mentally. It's not something that exists in the outside world. So, you know, when we have these elements of jhana, so when we have what's called piti, you know, the rapture, and the sukha, the happiness, the way that is registered by the mind, you know, can appear differently to different people. So the Visuddhimagga has this list, you know, for some people it's like a flower, for some people it's like a rope, or like cotton wool, like a star, etc., etc., etc. So there are people who experience the nimitta predominantly as a visual phenomena, and that is actually a surprisingly high percentage of people. So it's not uncommon at all for people to come back and say, you know, I saw a light in my meditation. If I was not actually teaching meditation, I would be very surprised at the percentage of people for which that actually happens. And then you have the other people. The other people are the ones who do not typically perceive the nimitta as some type of visual phenomena. So for that class of people, you know, they might report just the very strong feeling. I have a friend who predominantly experiences the nimitta that way, and I'm just so glad that she has a proper meditation teacher to go to, because I do not understand the way she experiences meditation. So if you have a more visual type nimitta, you know, the very classic description of how that nimitta becomes jhana, you know, you might perceive a light, and you know, like how do people describe the jhana experience? Like actually entering into the light itself. So, you know, this feeling of like actually being, of the jhana itself is something that happens within the nimitta. For me, you know, that's such a stereotypical description. It would be very hard for me to conceive, you know, of what, you know, of how you could actually have a very deep state of meditation without the sign. Because like when we're talking about the sign, what do we actually mean? You know, the sign is the sign of the mind. So if you are not seeing the sign in some form, you know, you have not actually seen the mind, because the reason why the sign of the mind appears is basically just because you've lost that perception of the body. And you know, it's the perception of the body that's actually been disturbing the meditation the whole time, because it's just like all of the discomfort, all of the coarseness. So that process of, you know, the perception actually becoming a purely mental perception, it's actually part and parcel of the calm itself. Because, you know, the calmer you are, the more those coarser perceptions drop off. So, I mean, I'm not sure if that was really answering your question, because if we look at like the way the texts deal with it, the texts they have terms for this. Sometimes the term they use, however, is rupa. So when you see texts that say, like say in the Upakalesa Sutta and the Majjhima Nikaya, that talk about, you know, we dwell a recipient of light and forms, but you know, they didn't stay. You know, they just, we saw them and they went away again. If we were to use commentarial language, you know, what's called a rupa in the Sutta Pitaka could equally be called a nimitta. Because, you know, a rupa is just an image, you know, it's the perceptual image. Okay. So the reason why we don't see this term nimitta so much, like, you know, it is used, like I think in the Anguttara Nikaya in particular, it has a few instances. But, you know, the reason we don't see it like very dominantly in the term of meditation sign is just because there's no word for it. And that happens quite often. For example, like even the term jhana, you know, in the language of the commentaries, jhana is called apana samadhi. So sometimes you hear people claiming that Ajahn Chah never talked about jhana. And of course, because, you know, that generation of bhikkhus, they will all be Visuddhimagga educated. You know, so for them, their native language was commentarial Pali. So, you know, the more natural way for that generation to talk about jhana is actually as apana samadhi, you know, being the same thing. And that's still very much the case today. If you sit Pali exams in Thailand, you know, to actually go through like 1, 2, 3 of the grades of the Pali exams, I think, from memory, you do Dhammapada Atthakatha, so you do the Dhammapada commentary, you do Mahamangala Sutta commentary, you do Visuddhimagga. So, as far as I'm aware, it's possible to sit the entire Pali syllabus without actually having a very deep engagement with canonical Pali. And the reason for that is that basically commentarial Pali hung around for a lot longer as an active language of textual production in the Theravada world. So the language of the suttas was perceived as being archaic at quite an early point. So that's why sometimes we see a little bit of difference in the terminology.
Great. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Any other final questions or comments?
With wanting less and need, the sort of combination of like wanting something but needing something, but sort of how does that sort of work with that sort of want per need? In other words, like if you've got a phone, like your phone's working fine, is it sort of having that, being happy with that phone and only wanting a new phone when that phone no longer works, sort of thing? Or sort of,
that's
not how I ask the question, but sort of that battle between sort of want and need, sort of thing. How do you deal with that in a world full of get this because it's the latest thing?
I think that's probably exactly the point. Like if we could hang on for the phone a bit longer, if it's not hurting us, it's one option. Because the basic issue is like what's driving it. It may be we legitimately need new stuff, and that if that's coming from a place of actually I really need that thing, like sure, it's fine. It's just when it becomes the compulsion and when it becomes like the obsession, that's when it becomes something that we're bringing back to our meditation or bringing back to our life orientation as a whole. That's when it becomes the issue. Because like we know if it's an obsession, if we can choose to stop thinking about it, and sometimes we don't know just like how much power these things actually have over us until we do try, and then we realize, oh, actually, maybe I was a little bit more interested in that than I would have liked to admit to myself.
Okay, thanks very much, Ayya.
Thank you, Mayan.
Do you want to do a blessings?
Sure, we can do merit dedication.
Sure.
And I just wanted to thank everyone who stayed with us online. Hi. I can see all of you there. I can see Simpson, and sorry, I can't catch all of your names. Sivan. I think I saw Jayanta earlier as well. So hello to all online people. So we'll do some merit dedication to wrap up. So just sharing all of the positive energy and all of the all of the success we've had this evening in coming together and sharing the Buddha's teachings, having a bit of conversation around that. Just inviting all beings to really participate in the good deeds that we've done this evening. Akasakta cha bhummatta deva naga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu sasanam. Akasakta cha bhummatta deva naga mahidika punyantam anumoditva chirang rakkantu desanam. Akasakta cha bhummatta deva naga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu mam paranti. Idang punyatinang hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. Idang punyatinang hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. Idang punyatinang hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.